Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Okay, and now it's time to welcome our main speaker, Dave.
Thank you so much. My name is David. I'm an alcoholic. And like our first speaker, woo, this is a rush getting up here. Oh, man. I was sitting there, the traditions were going along, and each one was going, and I was getting more nervous as it went along. It's really, really good to be here. I want to thank the secretary for inviting me. I want to thank my friend Robert for slipping her my number. He heard me speak one night at 26 and Broadway and thought for some reason it was a good idea to give her the number. I hope it was. Anyway, and I really just want to thank the group for making me feel so welcome. I know not even quite half the people here, not even, but just the people that are, hey, you're speaking tonight, it's great to see you, and it's just such a wonderful thing. And I just have to say right away off the bat that I love Alcoholics Anonymous, and it's just, it's meant so much to me. It's given me so much, and happy birthday to all the birthday people. Birthdays are my favorite thing in AA, and I loved that. It was just great to see everyone get their cake, and wow, there's a lot of people that from my home group here tonight, and I didn't expect to see, and it's great. I've only been to this meeting a couple times, so it's an honor to be up here speaking. And I'm an alcoholic. I was probably one of those guys that was out on Venice Beach that a lot of people would look at and say that, if I ever got as bad as that guy, maybe I'd do something about my drinking, And I had a couple of people that I used to look at like that. There was this one lady named Dirty Sally, and if some of you know Dirty Sally, she actually got sober for a while, and it was an absolute miracle. The first time I saw her at a meeting at the Marina Center, I started crying. I couldn't believe it. I had a couple years sober, and I saw this lady that used to be a dirty Venice beach bum from the beach, and she was cleaned up, and she was sober, and she had some dignity. And I just thought, oh my God, that's Alcoholics Anonymous, And of course, a lot of people, thought that of me. So anyway, I really want to barrel through the drunkalogue and get it out of the way. For me, it begins around 1968. It was the hippie days, and Jim Morrison was talking about the time to hesitate is through. And Grace Slick was saying, one pill gets you, higher, whatever it is, and Jimi Hendrix, not necessarily stoned but beautiful, and I was just this little red-haired kid who'd been doing the right thing up to that point, I studied in school. I did what my parents said for the most part, and I was an inquisitive little kid. I wanted to learn about stuff. I wanted to be actually a marine biologist when I was a little kid. And but often we take that other road. We have a fork in the road as alcoholics. And my fork in the road came around that time when I was around 12 years old, and it was a great unrest, Martin Luther King getting assassinated, all this stuff was happening, the whole hippie thing, I'd go down to the beach, and I was just a little kid, and there'd be a guy with a headband going pot, acid, speed, and I didn't really know much about what it was, but it looked attractive to me. I was kind of like, yeah, I'd like to check that out. What's going on, And I tried to smoke weed a couple times and nothing happened, and I tried to drink a few times and nothing really happened, but when I was 12, I went and I smoked a couple joints underneath POP Pier with a couple other guys, and this particular time it worked. And I came out and the world looked different. And I always share this. I don't know what I was trying to escape at 12 years old. I didn't have a horrible childhood where I was locked in the closet or anything happened, but I just loved the feeling of being out of myself. And we tried to sneak up on the seagulls. We thought if we were real quiet, we could, sneak up on the birds. And I just loved it. It was great, And when I was 13 years old, I drank some Red Mountain wine, and I puked all over this guy's floor. And you know, how you hear people speak and they go, yeah, and I couldn't wait to do it again. You know, I heard somebody last night that said that in a meeting. You know, yeah, I got all sick and I couldn't wait to do it again. I didn't want to do it again. You know what I mean? I thought that doesn't. So I went immediately into smoking weed, taking purple microdot acid. You know, I'm coming from the era of like 1970, going to the Grand Funk Railroad Black Sabbath concert, joints falling out of my pocket, you know, long red hair down to here. You know, and we just went to my 30-year high school reunion, and I had hair as long as my wife's over there, and it was red out to here, and I looked like Carrot Top, you know, and I was just a stoner kid. You know, I went to Venice High, and I'd be like, you know, I'd go smoke weed before I went to school, you know, and the teacher would go, hey, Mr. Brightman, do you know the answer? And I'd go, hey, man, I know that dude, you know, and you know, I was just stoned all the time, you know, and kind of like the Jeff Spicoli character in that movie, you know, and I was just out there. You know, I went to my high school reunion. I didn't really see anybody I knew because I was just stoned in the corner all the time, you know what I mean? Other guys were getting drunk, hanging out with cheerleaders. I was in my room stoned, learning to play guitar. And I started playing guitar when I was about 14, and I got real good real fast because all I did was smoke weed and practice, you know what I mean? And you can get good real fast. The only thing is I didn't learn any living skills, you know. Got my first girlfriend from singing a song, sang a Jethro Tull song at a little battle of the bands, and figured out that sometimes that works pretty good because the next day the guys in the band, we came to band practice, said, this girl likes you, man. I was like, wow, cool. So something was brewing there. I was, you know, something was happening, and it was to come up again later. Anyway, let's get to the meat of the story. After I was, like when I was 17, my brother got kicked out of the house, and pretty soon I was told to go too, and I was out on my own, and I'd be smoking the weed, and I'd had my own apartment by this time, and I'd sit there and I started to get the paranoid part. When you smoke weed and you start to think, you know what I mean? I'd start to think and I'd be go, oh my God, I got to buy my own toilet paper. Where's my mom? And it was just, it was really not a happy situation for me. All my friends were getting in bands, they were getting girlfriends, they were playing gigs, they were doing all kinds of stuff. I had a Fender Stratocaster sitting in the corner with no strings on it. I was watching basketball games, getting high, wondering, where's mine? You know what I mean? Like, what's happening for me? So what happened was that I started going down to the Venice pagodas a couple years later, and they were drinking down there in those little pagodas in Venice. And they handed me some beer, and magic happened. I made the smoothest transition from drug addict to alcoholic that one can make. I tell you what, because I dropped all that acid, all that speed, all that everything else, and I started drinking, and I loved it. It was just wonderful. I could sing Bob Dylan songs out of key. I didn't care what you thought. I mean, I wasn't this shy little red-haired kid. I was starting to happen, and what happened was quickly, I started going down to the beach, and I saw an old friend of mine who I'd played in a band with, and he was singing with a guy named Hook, who was a singer of a group called the Venice Canalligators. And they invited me to come and play with them one day, and I was just a skinny little 21-year-old kid, and I was calling myself Rock and Roll Dave at the time. And I had my nice Guild guitar and everything, and I went up and I sat up on the bench with my friend, and he said, hey, take a solo. And I ripped off like my best acoustic guitar solo I could, and my friend kind of looked. He said, damn, you got good, because he heard me like 5 years before that. And he said, man. So I finished the rest of the day. We drank some Budweisers. We hung out. We had crowds around. People were throwing money in the guitar case. At the end of the day, they came and they handed me like $15 or something like that. I thought I'd hit pay dirt. You know what I mean? It was like, oh my God, I can drink free beer, play music, have a bunch of people idolize me, and get paid for it? Oh my God, I was in heaven, you know what I mean? And they said, hey, can you come back tomorrow and do it again? I said, you betcha. You know, I went home with that little kid just skipping along like, yeah, I'm in a band, ooh, you know, all right. And then the next couple of days, one day we were playing on the beach and everyone had a nickname. There was Mighty Malnourished Michael from Milwaukee, and there was Mandocello Bobby, the ladies' man, on the Mandocello. And one day he said, on the flat top guitar, we got Slavin David. You know, and I'll tell you what, in my mind, a legend was born. You know what I mean? Because all of a sudden, I went from being this shy little red-haired kid who couldn't get a girl. I was Slavin David, and I was fitting tight in my Jordache jeans, and I was swinging cool, baby. You know what I mean? Like real cool. And I just brought a photo tonight just to kind of give you an idea how I felt about myself at this particular point in time. And my attitude was like, hey, I'm Slavin Dave and you're not, and you know, what can you do for me, you know? And, you know, as we know, alcoholics are egomaniacs with low self-esteem underneath it, you know? We can't decide if we're a piece of shit, the best one, or if I'm just like, I'm a piece of shit, but I'm the biggest piece of shit in the universe, and everything revolves around me. Everything's about me. My wife said it's still like that sometimes, but anyway, I've worked on it, though. And what happened was it was just great. Like, everywhere I went, like, I'd get a drinking ticket on the beach, and I'd go to pay it at West LA Court, and someone would go, hey, Slavin Dave, saw you play the other night. I'd go, yeah, all right. You know, I'd walk in the bar, you know, and it'd be like, you know, hey, Slavin Dave. I'd go, hey, buy me a drink. All right, you know, and it was just fabulous. And I had that one really good year of an alcoholic. You know what I mean? You know how when it's all still working, the hangovers aren't that bad. I hadn't really hit the hard stuff yet. I just drank beer. A lot of it, mind you, like the first speaker said, like there was never enough, of course, you know. But it was all still kind of working for me, and I was Slavin Dave. I got this girlfriend. I had a 4-story ocean view apartment in Venice. Everything was really fabulous. But then one night I started drinking vodka instead of beer. And things started to change, and of course this is late 70s, and cocaine started to be introduced in it. But I got to tell you that cocaine for me was really just sort of like an accent mark or something, because I'm an alcoholic. I loved booze, man. I loved drinking, you know, and that was what I was all about. And what happened was that, you know, my little music career started to go along. Hook kicked me out of the band. I got my own little band. He threw me out of the Canaligators, and I kept the name Slavin Dave, and I started playing little gigs around. And what happened was that I started getting a little interest from some people, and I met this guy that was a big rock star in a pretty famous band and stuff, and we started hanging out, and he was going to help me out and do all this stuff for me, and we were recording, and all this stuff was great. And then at one point, and he was like a drinker like me, like he taught me how to like take a 100 proof Smirnoff, and he would take a big jug of orange juice and he'd pour out half of it. I remember we drove in his rental car one day, and he said, look, this is how you do it. And he took it out and he poured it out, and he poured the 100 proof Smirnoff in the jug, and he swirled it around like this, and he goes, now you just walk around with it and drink it. And it's like, I went, yeah, all right, you know. And I thought, man, this guy's my kind of guy, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I could look up to a guy like that, you know what I mean? You know, that's like a role model for me, you know what I mean? And I said, yeah, cool, that's excellent, you know? And but then we were going to do this thing, and then the producer guy, the money man or whoever he was, he said, you know, I don't think it's good if you drink so much, Dave. And they said, as a matter of fact, we're going to put you on salary, but we don't want you drinking, you know. And I can't remember exactly, like drinking during business hours. We're a few musicians, you know what I mean? That's when you have to drink. You drink at the gig. I mean, what the hell? If you're at band practice, you drink. I mean, I'd like take a couple of Quaaludes and drink some vodka and go to band practice, you know, fall into my amp, and, you know, it was a good practice, you know what I mean? It was great, you know, and, you know, we got things done, you know, and so anyway, so they gave me this one check. They gave me like $100, and the next day they found me drunk in the bar, you know, and it's like, to me, that proves the power of alcoholism, because, you know, here I was, this little kid, like, you know, practicing all these years, dreaming of being a rock star. It's what I've wanted to do my whole life. I'm 47 now. I'd still kind of like to do it, you know. I don't think I'm going to do it, but it's been something in my whole life. That's what I've wanted to do. It's my love of my life, you know. And they offered me a chance to do it. Like, here you go, you know. But a bottle of vodka was more important for me, because I'm an alcoholic. You know, and like people said, we'll drink through anything. We don't care. People, you said if you drink again, you know, it's all over. Yeah, I don't care. I don't care about you. I don't care about the girl. My girlfriend went and joined the Hare Krishnas. I lost my job as an assistant drug dealer. I drank my way out of the music business, and this was 1980, you know, and it wasn't going real good for me, you know. All of a sudden I went from like having all those things and being this guy with all this promise, like looking out towards the future. We were looking at some pictures the other day. I have this picture where I'm sitting, and I still have a little hair, and I got this beautiful purple shirt on, and I got my acoustic guitar at sunset, and I'm looking out towards the future like, yeah, I'm going to have success. I'm going to have it all. And I went from that to having all my stuff in a white hefty bag, drinking vodka in the morning because I had the shakes like this. You know, the music career's gone, the girlfriend's gone, and I'm coming over to your couch and I'm saying, hey, I'm Slavin Dave, you know. I'm going to stay on your couch, I'm going to drink your vodka, snort a little couple lines if you have them, and eat some steaks, and I'll just hang out for a while. You'll dig it. It'll be cool. You know, it'll be excellent. They'd handle that for a couple weeks, or a week maybe, 4 days, and they'd be like, "Hey, Slavin Dave, it's time to hit the road, pal." Sometimes I'd double back and hit one place that I was at before, you know what I mean? I'd go, and a couple of those people are in AA. I'm going to tell you one story, and I'm going to get out of the drunkalogue, because, really it's important to talk about my sobriety. I want to welcome the newcomers that are here and tell you that it's totally possible to stay sober in Alcoholics Anonymous, as you've seen with people taking birthdays for various years. It's totally possible to stay sober here in Alcoholics Anonymous if you surrender, if you just try to take the first step, and it took me a while to get to it, When I was out there, I used to play on the boardwalk. As I said, I was sort of a legendary street musician in Venice. Everyone knew Slavin Dave, and the funny thing was to go down on the boardwalk on the weekends and just see how drunk I would get, and I think people really enjoyed that, and there's nothing like just feeling no pain out there. I was thinking about that on the way. I was trying to think of what to talk about tonight, and it's just nothing like being out there in the middle of the afternoon and having just enough booze in you where you just feel just right. And you got the crowd around and you're singing, and I just remember I used to feel so free, and I just felt wonderful, you know what I mean? It was great, but I always overshot the mark. And I'd go home at the end of the night crying. How come I didn't have a girlfriend? How come I didn't have anything? Where's mine? What about me? And this one time my friend brought me a bottle of Stolichnaya, and I was drinking on the beach, and it was towards the end of the day, and I had this huge crowd around, and I used to sing Gloria. That was the song. I mean, I thought I wrote the song, it was like I thought, and it was really my signature song, even though, Van Morrison wrote it, but, it was my signature song. And I'd hand the guitar to one of the other musicians. We'd have all these motley crew of guys, sometimes 6, 7, 8, 10 guys playing down there, huge crowd and everything. And I hand my guitar, and, the shirt would start to come down like this, and it might just come off, and I didn't care. And I'd have some, really bright red pants on with, a white belt or something, and I'd be going, "Hey, Gloria," and I was drinking this warm Stoli this particular day, and I had the big crowd around end of the day, and I'm taking a swig of the bottle, and I'm like, "Yeah," and I take a big swig, and I'm like, and I just puked in front of the whole crowd, and about half of them got really grossed out and left, and the other half stayed, and some of those people are here in Alcoholics Anonymous with us. The reason I know that is because I took my cake at Monday Night Venice, which is my home group for my first couple years at 2nd and Hill, and I took my cake for 1 year, and I told that story, and a girl came up and she said, "I was there that day, I remember that." And so anyway, I tried Quaalude maintenance. When my friend died, it scared me. My buddy, rock and roll guy, died, and I tried a bunch of stuff, and I tried to drink white wine only, everything that the book says. I'm just a complete alcoholic. And the thing is for me, is that I just don't feel okay in my own skin. And that whole thing about being a musician and everything and all that stuff, it was all part of this whole thing of that the book kind of talks about. I think we build this character, there's this character that we have to portray to the outside world. And I always thought I had to be that character. I had to be Slavin Dave. See, I'd built up this whole thing, and I was Slavin Dave, and I had to be it, man. And how could I be it if I wasn't drinking? I didn't feel okay. I can't just go to a gig and just be like, I felt like I'd had ants crawling in my pants, you know what I mean? I'd be there at the gig, and I'd try to get halfway through the gig, and I couldn't get through the gig, and that was my big thing of being a musician. That was I just couldn't get over that. How was I going to be Slavin Dave, or even just go out to a bar and just hang out? I couldn't do it. You can't just walk around and I don't feel okay, I can't do it. And finally, I just tried. I tried all this stuff. I would try to quit on my own. I only went to a couple meetings before I got to AA, and what finally happened was towards the end of 1987, the physical ramifications of my drinking started to come up and bite me. And I used to think when I was drinking, I would think, yeah, probably when I'm 50, I'll probably have liver damage or something. Something my liver, something I'll probably have to deal with my drinking or something. Well, it came up on me a little sooner because I was 31 going on 32, and I went to my family doctor, and he told me that I had the beginnings of liver damage. I had high blood pressure. I'd already begun to cough up blood for about 1.5 years or so. I couldn't say that it was the Mexican food that I ate the night before or something like that anymore. I was starting to get it, that something was desperately wrong, and I had to do something about it. And I would stay dry, and I'd work as my little job as a painter's helper, and I'd be riding on those long rides to Oxnard or something to do jobs, and my head would be just running like this, and my head would be going, "You're an alcoholic. You're probably going to die pretty soon. What's your mom going to think?" Yeah, and I'd have these, I was so grandiose, I'd have these little conversations in my head about what people were going to say about me. I'd say, yeah, people would probably be talking on the beach, and I'd go, "Hey, you remember that Slavin Dave guy used to play those Chuck Berry songs on the beach and everything? Yeah, he died a while back. Yeah, it's kind of sad. Yeah, let's go get a beer or whatever, And, right? He was a great guy, It was, all right, well, who's next, let's move on, And, So I called up my mom on February 7th, 1988, and I told her that I was a hopeless drunk and I was probably going to die, and I was sorry for letting her let her down. I said, I'm real sorry, Mom. I'm drinking and just can't quit, and I don't know what to do, and I'm probably going to die. She said, David, you haven't been a bad son, and although it breaks my heart if that's the road you choose to take, I have to set you free to go do that. She'd been to some Al-Anon meetings, and little voice in my head said, maybe you could try not drinking. And you know, I'd heard that before, but, you know. So I went out and I got as drunk as I could that day. I was toasting everybody on the beach going, hey, it's my last day drinking. Woo! All right, let's party! And I finally, I like to remember that my last day drinking was spent only drinking, no drugs, just drinking from the time I woke up till the time I passed out. Straight booze. I don't know if I ate food or whatever. And I ended up at this little bar called the Venice Saloon at Lincoln and Palms in my hometown of Venice, California. It's now a Staples. And I'd like to have a little monument there, you know, Slavin Dave at his line. But it's a Staples, so my ego would stay out of that one. And anyway, I'm just kidding. So I was begging this lower companion to please come home with me. I'm like, come on, sweetheart, it's my last night drinking, for old time's sake, come on, please. And luckily she didn't go. They poured me in a cab, and I got up the next morning with a hangover, as usual, just another weekend hangover, you know. Face stuck to the pillow and feel like you got hit by a truck, that kind of deal, you know. And first thing my head said was, you know, have a couple of wine coolers, you know, and you can start this sober thing tomorrow. And I remembered. I said I wasn't going to drink today. And I think we all have to have that moment of truth, that one time where we finally surrender and know that the jig is up. And for some reason that day, February 8th, 1988, I knew that the jig was up, that all my best ideas had turned to shit. And here I was. What was I going to do? I didn't know, actually. I just knew I couldn't drink. I called my little sister. My little sister called me after she had talked to my mom. I had called before. My little sister, who just adopted a baby, who I gave away at her wedding, called me up and said, I hear you're going to try not to drink, David. I said, yeah, I'm going to try. It took me almost 30 days to get to a meeting, and I tell you, I'm a big believer in a lot of meetings, especially if you're new. God, just come to a lot of meetings. It don't matter. Bring the mind, bring the body, the mind will fall. It don't matter. You don't have to work all 12 steps right away. Just show up here. Try to sort of get acclimated to what we're doing here, and hopefully the miracle is going to happen for you, you know, because that's what happened for me. I finally got to a meeting when I was almost 30 days sober. I went to Venice High School. I was 27 days dry. It was a Saturday night like tonight. Big meeting place like this at Venice High, where I failed to graduate because I was stoned all the time, and they said, anybody in their first 30 days of sobriety? And I raised my hand. I said, my name's David. I'm an alcoholic. I had that leather cap still cocked to my side, and I was like just sweating bullets, and I was red-faced and bloated. And this guy Marty said, Slavin Dave, when you came to AA, you looked like a Chinese tomato because you had a big red face with little slits for eyes, you know. Hey, it's not politically correct, but he's right, you know. And anyway, it took me a little while, and I started coming to meetings, you know. I saw Gary, I think, when I was like first sober, and I started going to Beyond Baroque, and I started going to these meetings, and I was a nutty newcomer. Oh my God, I was just so out of my mind. You know, people come in and they, you know, say don't get in a relationship in your first year. I mean, how about like if I even like talked to a girl, my face would start twitching. I'd be like, I wasn't too tightly wrapped when I got here. Not exactly a vision for you. Not exactly relationship material for the ladies. You know what I mean? And I'd come into meetings and my sponsor would go, hey, this is David. I'd go, hey, how are you doing? How's it going? He'd go, this is David. He's new. As if they couldn't tell, I'm like bouncing off the walls. Hi, how are you doing? Hey, what's going on? It's a 30-day chip. I need a chip. I want a chip, you know. And you know, every meeting I couldn't wait. You know, I lived for the chips. You know, 60 days. Oh, yeah, you know. And I'd go to the Lano Club. I'd be participation meetings. I'd have my hand up. I'd be like, oh, share. I want to share. Oh, share. Oh, share. You know. And then the guy wouldn't call me. I'd be go, God, there's a resentment I got a resentment with these people, and don't they know? And oh my God, you know, what's going on here? And you guys just said, keep coming back, you know? My second meeting, I went to Monday Night Venice. I had 29 days. I raised my hand. I was sitting in the back. I said, my name's David. I'm an alcoholic. And I swear to God, the room did one of those double take things, like they turned and they went. And they like rushed me at the coffee break, started giving me numbers, like, oh, Slavin Dave, man, here's my number. And I thought, wow, maybe they want me to play a gig or something, you know. And But, you know, they're trying to help the poor, sick new man, you know, and I get that now because now that's what I do, you know what I mean? You know, but, so anyway, I just learned to stay sober. You know, my first year was really about just a lot of meetings. I tried to go on panels. I was just, you know, I was all over it. I took commitments. I got a literature commitment. I went out and I spent too much money, and the guy goes, man, you spent too much money? Oh, my God, you know. You know, you want to do everything right when you're first new here. You know, you want to get everything good, you know, and I don't know. I just showed up. I tried to do what it was. I did a long inventory out of the Hazelden Guide. I wrote all these questions like, how'd you feel before you came out of the womb and all this kind of stuff. And I wrote it all down, you know. I finally shared it with my first sponsor, who is this guy, Joey, you know, God bless him. He's had a stroke, and I go pick him up for a meeting. I have a commitment out every Tuesday, and it's my way of giving back because he was there for me that first year. He was a good, simple sponsor for me. I didn't believe in the God thing. I had a hard time with that coming in. I'm just this kid from Venice, so I didn't, you know, believe in a higher power. But I just said, okay, and I just held your hand and said the Lord's Prayer anyway. I didn't do personal prayer of my own. I thought that was okay for you, but not for me, and I did this Hazelden Guide inventory. I did all this stuff. I missed the God steps, and when I got a year, I took 19 cakes in 7 days. And I wanted to shout from the mountaintops, and now I was here, I was sober, and then everything was beautiful, and then Cake Week was over. And I didn't know about any other chips that were coming up. And I was left with myself. And that wasn't a very happy place to be at that time. Because I wanted stuff. I figured, hey, where's mine? I got a year. All right. How about a girlfriend? How about a music career? Didn't have a band. Hadn't asked any girls out, but figured, hey, come on down. You know, how about me? I thought this waiter was going to come in with like a silver bow tie and go, here you go, David. Here's everything. You know, you stayed sober. You've, you know, showed up. Here you go. And it wasn't happening. And I really had this, like, burning desire to be the first speaker at Monday Night Venice, because that was my home group. I thought, you know, they should ask me to speak. I've showed up. I've done it, you know. And I mean, I was like serious about this, you know. At least I didn't want to be the main speaker, but I wanted to be first. They had a 20-minute speaker first. And I kept going to the meeting. I told my sponsor, how come they don't ask me? You know, what about me, you know? And he said, I don't know. Usually they ask you. You don't ask them, you know. I said, well... And I kept getting nominated to be secretary, and I'd like lose to my best friend by 1 vote, and I'd be all pissed off at the coffee shop afterwards. How come they didn't pick me? And you know, people like Chuck and Lee Cohen would come up to me and they'd go, the highest up you get is sober. And I'd be like, okay. And you know, I'd be like, all right. And I went to my sponsor and I said, I think I missed this third step thing, this God thing. I think I missed it. I don't understand. I really didn't get it. What does it mean? You turn your will and your life over to the care of God. Does that mean you're just jiggling around like a bowl of Jell-O and you kind of go, yes, God, go over there, get a job, you know, and oh, yes, God, and just follow God. Yeah, okay. And I hear a voice. Okay, all right. And I'd heard this guy named Israel speaking at a meeting, and he had flowers coming out of his hat, and he was pounding on the big book, and he looked like a crazy beatnik, and he actually happens to be my neighbor even to this day. He lives above me on Paloma Avenue in Venice. And I said, hey, what? I went to my first sponsor, and I said, you know, I think I missed this God thing. And he said, you know, I'm not real big on the God thing. Hey, you know, not everybody is, you know. But I needed it. I needed help. I knew that it wasn't happening for me. I was just stuck in self. I didn't know what to do. So I asked this guy Israel for help, and he started helping me. He told me to write some inventories. He told me to take a piece of paper and write, hi, Father, I've got this problem, and I can't do it alone. Please help me. The problem seems to be. And to write my fears and resentments down on this piece of paper. And I started doing it. And I started writing. I fear I'm bald. I fear that I'm wearing this hat, that if I take the hat off, they won't like me. I fear I'll never have a girlfriend. I feel I'll never play music again. I fear because I didn't play. I just stopped playing music for the first 2 years of my sobriety. I just didn't do it. Just couldn't make the transition to sober musician. Just couldn't do it. Just had to be sober. Just threw myself into AA. Just couldn't do it. And I'd write these fears. And he'd share with me, and I thought maybe I need to do another 4-step, but I was, no, I'm okay, I'm great, you know, but I just kept doing these 10 steps, and we'd pray, and he'd say the 3rd-step prayer, and I started learning the 3rd-step prayer, and I started using it, and all of a sudden I started sponsoring guys. I was working at this parking lot, and people would come driving up to the parking lot, and they'd say, hey, Slavin Dave, how come you're not playing your guitar on the beach? I'd go, give me the $5 and park your car down there. And I was just getting a dose of humility, you know, but it was great because these guys would come down and we'd have men's stags, and I was starting to heal, and I was starting to write this stuff down, and I'd start to say, I have fear. And one day I was a year and a half sober, and I decided not only to walk outside without the hat, but to go to a party where there was all women at some girl's one-year birthday party. And so now let's tackle two. Let's not go for one. Let's tackle the woman fear and the bald fear, right? And, you know, I've come to an interesting conclusion in sobriety that I am bald. Yeah, quite okay with it today. Don't want Rogaine or Hair Club for Men, and so, you know, it's all, no expensive operations or anything. I'm just bald, and it's okay. I've found that bald men, you know, women find bald men sexy. Some of them do, yeah. Got Chili Pepper right over here, they'll tell you that. So, anyway, I go to this party, and this girl answers the door, and my friend Jean, she answers the door, and I say, "Hi, how you doing? You know, I'm not wearing my hat." And she kind of looked at me. She goes, "Really? Why don't you come in and get a cup of coffee?" You know. And I was like, I mean, relieve me of the bondage of self, that I might better do thy will. You know? I mean, it was all about me, and you were thinking about it. People didn't give a crap. I'd go to these meetings, and I mean, they knew me. They knew I was like attached to that old crappy little leather cap, you know. And I remember this lady, Joni, said, she goes, "God, David, you got rid of the cap, you know." And there was another thing, this whole Slavin Dave thing. I had such an identity crisis coming in here because everyone knew me as this musician, this guy, Slavin Dave. And I don't know if people relate to this, but it was so important for me to come into AA and just be David. I wanted to just be David. Because for me, that was so attached with ego and everything. People would ask me, they go, "Well, do you go to the musicians meeting? Do you go to this? Do you go to that?" No, I said, I go to 26 and Broadway. I go to the Marina Center. I go to meetings because I need to learn to just be one among many. I knew that I had to just be an alcoholic. And what happened, I remember I was like 2 years sober or something. I spoke at my home group, 26 and Broadway, as the first speaker. And they said, when the guy went, "And our first speaker is Slavin Dave." And I got up there and I said, no, I'm David. You know, I'm not Slavin Dave. And now everyone knows me as Slavin Dave in AA. And I don't care. Because, you know, over the years I've gotten comfortable with who I am. I don't care. I know I'm David. It doesn't matter. It's a stage character. It's a stage name. It's whatever, but it's just what I'm known by. Hey, you know that guy Slavin Dave? Yeah. You know, it's just a way of identifying. They can say David B. I tell people David Brightman. They go, "Who? What? Who's that?" You know? They know me as Slavin Dave, and it's okay, you know? And it's just taken a long time to get to that place where today I am happy, joyous, and free. I'm okay in my own skin, and I just had to go through all those things, you know? I had to go through the anger of, like, my 5th year. I was so angry. I was just pissed because, again, I wasn't getting mine. Where was mine? Where was my relationship? Where was my music? How come they were putting me on the small stage and not the big stage? Don't you understand who I am and all this stuff? You know, and I just had to like barrel through that. I went to some outside help. I went to some therapy. It really, really helped. And when I was coming up on 5 years sober, a magical thing happened. Something totally shifted. I just went through it. And the beautiful thing, my wife and I were talking about this on the way up here, is that the people in AA just allowed me to do what I had to do. You didn't throw me away. You didn't tell me, no, you're too angry, no, whatever. They just took it. I told everybody to F off at 26 and Broadway when I was 4 years sober at a noon meeting. Just told you all to go F yourself. Don't tell me to read page 449. Again, you just said keep coming back. I had about a year after that, I was at a meeting, or 6 months after that, some woman came up to me at a meeting. She said, "You know, I used to be really scared of you, but I'm not anymore." Wow. Something shifted. And what happened was I was coming up on 5 years sober, and I'd been through this horrible, really painful year where I'd have these dark nights of the soul. I mean, I remember one night I went out, I got a parking ticket at a band practice. I was auditioning for some band, and I parked my car in the wrong place in West LA, and I got this $48 ticket, and I could not let that go. 4.5 years sober. How could they give me the ticket and I can't afford it and I don't have enough money and I'm just like out of my mind over a ticket. I'm going to kill him and what am I going to fight it and I can't believe it. And I was trying to call people in AA in the middle of the night. Nobody was answering. I finally called central office and I'm telling this guy at central office, you know, I got this ticket and I don't understand and damn it, you know. I don't even remember what he told me, you know. But when I was coming up on 5 years sober, I was going to my home group, 26 and Broadway. I was going to a noon meeting. I was listening to some Freddie King on the tape in my little Volkswagen. I was going by Cloverfield Avenue where all these trees are. I was driving to the meeting, just going to a noon meeting, and I started crying. And all of a sudden, something deep inside me knew that it was going to be okay. I knew that whatever it was that was so hard that I was going through was past. And then I was just going to a meeting. I was coming up on 5 years sober, and it was all going to be all right. And when I turned 5, my little mom, that lady that I called when I hit bottom, came down with my sister, and they gave me a cake at this little meeting on Sunday called Beyond Baroque in Venice. And when I went down, when I walked in, I saw my mom. I just totally lost it. I just couldn't believe it. I just didn't know. It was so much emotion, I didn't even know what to do with it. It was just so overwhelming to me. I just couldn't believe it. So I went up to the bathroom stall, and I hit my knees, and I prayed, and I said, God, thank you so much for bringing me from there to here. I can't believe I got 5 years sober. I can't believe I feel okay, that I'm where I'm at today. And I looked in that porcelain bowl, and I remembered so many years when I just puked in that thing. I just had a personal relationship with the porcelain bowl, you know? And I just had this epiphany of grateful, and I used to be in the porcelain, and I got up, and AA is such a great thing. I got up, and this friend of mine, Tom, was there, and I'm teary-eyed, and I walk out of the bathroom, and he said, you okay? And I said, yeah, I just had a moment there. You know, I'm turning 5, and I'm just kind of grateful. And he said, wow, he gave me a hug. I kind of took a breath, and I went downstairs, and I was okay. I was able to stand up there and get my cake. And I'll just never forget the look in my mom's eyes, you know, when she was giving me that cake for 5 years. It's just one of those moments, you know what I mean, where it's all okay, and you can't believe that you're there. You know, and I've had many, many like that, you know, many since then. And I've had hard ones, too. I've had tough ones where it's just hard to be me, just in my own skin, dealing with my mind. But I just keep showing up, working the program. I've done several inventories. I've done amends. I went and I made amends to my ex-girlfriend, that one that joined the Hare Krishnas, and I got free from that. When I left, I walked over to her husband, and I shook his hand, and I said, I wish you a good life. I wish you the best. And I hated those people because they took something from me. And it wasn't about her and about what she might have been confused enough to join this religion or whatever. It was about me. How come what about me? I don't have a girlfriend anymore. And into sobriety, I carried that resentment. People would, you know, be Krishna, and they'd be like, hey, Krishna, get away from me. You know. You know? I mean, it's not good for a guy's ego when your girlfriend joins something like that, you know. And into sobriety, I carried that, you know what I mean? When I went there and made that amends, I walked away. I was a free person. I was just totally free. And so many things like that. I've been able to make amends to my father, who died of drug addiction in 1977. He was an actor. And I went and I got things straightened out at Screen Actors Guild, and once in a while I get a little check for $39.60 from a movie made called I Love You, Alice B. Toklas in 1968. And I tell Vicki that we get to go have a little dinner on Larry Brightman. And what happened was that I've healed that. I've made peace with that. I'm sad that he died. I miss him. I wish I had this old Jewish guy to talk to, you know. It would be great. But he died in 1977. I have a stepfather today that I've had a very up and down relationship with over the years. He's 70. Tomorrow I'm going to get my nice little Mitsubishi, and I'm going to drive down to San Pedro and hang out for the winter solstice with him and his wife, who's a woman I couldn't be in the same room with. Has a lot to do with me being married to Vicki over here. We were talking before the meeting about how a good relationship can smooth a lot of things out. I didn't get a chance to talk. I was going to talk about my sponsor's wife. I'll just quickly mention it. We had a real difficult time. As a matter of fact, I left Israel as a sponsor for a while because I didn't really care for his wife that much. And I went and I had a woman sponsor, and I went all the way around. And after Vicki and I got together, the woman sponsor helped me to get right with myself and get through whatever it was so that I could be open enough to have the relationship. And once I was in the relationship, I needed to talk to a man. And it was just how it worked for me. And I went back with Israel, and all of a sudden, Avery and I are fine today. And it's got to have a lot to do with her. And I just want to end my talk tonight by saying that I tried to have some relationships with, like, drinking alcoholics, being a musician and stuff. I'd go to a gig, and I met this one girl when I was like 6 years sober, and you know, we kind of, hey, all right, and went on this little trek. And you know, I'd go share at a panel at Claire Detox, and then go sleep with like a drunk girl, and it's just not a good thing. It didn't work out too well for me, and I was lonely. It filled a need for a while, but it just wasn't good. And when I was in my 11th year sober, I was at a meeting at the Marina Center, and I always went to 26 and Broadway on Tuesday night at this particular time, and I was going to go get somebody a cake, and the guy called and he canceled the cake. He said, "I'm sorry, I got school or something." He did me such a great favor, because my friend had been saying, "Why don't you come to this meeting at the Marina Center on Tuesday night? It's a nice meeting, you know, just something different, right?" So I said, okay. And I went over there, and I was sitting, and the speaker that night was talking about father-son stuff, how he'd healed this relationship with his son, and I was just going through that right then. I was just about to make amends with my stepdad and everything. I'm sitting there in the front row, crying my eyes out at this speaker talking about his father, and my friend Candace came over and gave me a hug after the meeting, gave me this big hug, and she said, "You know, I don't know if it's the right time right now, but there's somebody that wants to meet you after the meeting." And I thought, well, some other newcomer, great, you know, because I've always worked with other alcoholics. That's just been a great thing for me. I've always sponsored a lot of people, and I've been grateful enough to just really be able to work with a lot of guys. And I looked up, and there was VINCI signing court cards at the podium, and we talked after the meeting, and we exchanged numbers, and we went for coffee, and we've been together for a little over 5 years now. We got married 2 years ago on the beach on the most beautiful sunset ever. And the thing was is that, you know, God will give you what you're supposed to have when you're supposed to have it, I think. And I didn't get a chance to talk so much about the God thing, but I really, it took me a while, but when I was 2.5 years sober, through some pain, I found my higher power. Just through enough pain where I wanted to drink and I didn't want it to be out of the pain, and I finally surrendered. And, you know, I can't tell you what my higher power is. I don't know what it is. It's infinite, and I'm finite. I'm just a human. I don't understand it. I know that we're all here. I know that a proctologist met a stockbroker in 1935 or whatever it is, and because of those two guys' relationship, we're all here and have a chance at sobriety tonight. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for what I have. I have an unbelievable life today. I haven't become a success in the music business. I'm not rich. I'm struggling for money right now. We're trying to get out of the hole. We're trying to buy a place. We just couldn't do it, you know. But I haven't gone hungry, you know. I work as a waiter today. I show up, and I'm a good waiter. I'm good at it, and I show up and I do the best I can. And I had a horrible customer today, and I just said, "You want to talk to the manager?" I let the manager handle it. I didn't have to get into it with this lady over like 2 pieces of bacon. You know, what the hell. Then she had the audacity to tell that because maybe it was because she was black. I said, "Jesus Christ, I'm a blues player. How could you think that, you know?" I'm so grateful to be sober. I don't want to talk over my time. There's so many other things that I would have liked to say, but I guess I said what God wanted me to say. I want to read this little poem because when I was 8 years sober, my sponsor at the time, Susan, gave me this for my birthday in a little plaque. And it's a speech by Nelson Mandela, and it really meant a lot to me, and it still does. It says, "Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small doesn't serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We were born to manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others." Thank you so much. I love you guys. Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think. Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
control connected.
Remote control is connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. If that shows up, the gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right, but I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.